Welcome, everyone. Before I introduce our speaker today, I wanted to just go over some housekeeping items. So, a few things: no need to multitask or worry about taking notes. We want you to stay fully engaged. So, at the end of the session, we'll send a copy of the recording and also the presentation slides. Also, as always, we love to hear from you throughout the session. You can send in your questions anytime by clicking the question icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. It's right on the right-hand side of your screen. And then once today's session ends, like I said earlier, as always, we love to hear from you guys. So if you're shy and don't want to ask questions during the webinar, feel free to fill out the post event survey that pops up after the webinar and send us your feedback. It really helps shape future sessions for us. And we always love to hear what you think. So now with all of that out of the way, I would love to introduce our speaker, Chris Savio. So let you take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bonnie. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm Chris Savio, our Senior Director of Product Marketing here at GoTo for our LogMeIn products, so LogMeIn Rescue, Resolve, and so forth. So excited to be with you today for a really interesting topic. We had a lot of people joining in, so that's great to see. As Bonnie said, if you have questions as we're going along the way, feel free to just drop them into the question box. If I kind of notice one popping in that's relevant to what I'm talking about, or I think would kind of add to the points, I'll stop in, maybe jump into them. Some I'll hold for towards the end, but you don't have to hold your questions till the end. Just feel free to drop them in as we're going along. Before I jump into the agenda, I do want to, I'd be remiss with my marketing and sales hat on, and Bonnie would get mad at me if I didn't do my due diligence to speak about LogMeIn Rescue and the product that we're kind of sponsoring today, and we'll actually have a little demo of some functionality later in the session as well. So LogMeIn Rescue, for those that aren't familiar, it's really an enterprise grade technical remote support product, and obviously enterprise grade sounds kind of buzzwordy marketing jargon. So what does that actually mean? Well, really, where Rescue stands out from other remote control, remote access solutions is in its customization, flexibility, and security capabilities, right? So it can cover everything from any use case of devices you're supporting, from desktop to mobile devices, can help you troubleshoot disconnected devices with live camera sharing capabilities. And then it has really the power under the hood of what you can get done in sessions. So running scripts, doing background analytics, multi-agent collaboration that you can bring in licensed agents and unlicensed agents. And then in the back end, the administration portal, where you can really customize your workflows for up to 10 different connection methods that are user initiated or technician initiated, brand everything, set permissions down to granular levels for every agent or group of agents, integrate with open APIs or out of the box integrations and so forth. So really kind of covers you end to end. And then even on your audit side with robust reporting, 12 out of the box reports, then anything you can customize as well. And then, as the topic here today suggests, a lot of really exciting AI functionality that we've been rapidly innovating on to really lean into a lot of the level one, level two agent needs and sessions to really remove some of that heavy backlog that's going on with them, get through sessions better, and just make them smarter. And so excited to talk to you today about some of that and show you it as well. Okay. So we'll put that aside. Rescue will revisit it a little bit farther down, but let's talk more about the agenda today. So what we're going to be going through and the topics I'd love to cover with all of you. So yeah, want to start off right with the state of the state, laying down, what I see, what LogMeIn perceives as a lot of the state of tech support, where we are today. What are some of the challenges and troubles that are facing your organizations? And I think that gives you good perspective as to why we're developing what we're developing. What were the problems we're trying to solve for, right? And along the way as well, right, that pivots to the next topic of AI adoption and different use cases aimed at solving a lot of these trends that are emerging and have been kind of growing over the past few months or few years as well. Want to dive into where you could probably see some measurable impact with AI. I know that's always a big question when I'm talking different customers, prospects, and so forth around, right? What is the ROI today on AI? Where are we getting that value back? What's the impact we're going to see? I mentioned that we're going to we'll have a little recorded demo of some functionality within Rescue that I had one of my fantastic solution consultants record for this. So excited to bring that to you. And then we'll wrap up with some challenges in getting started, right? What can you be doing today, no matter where you are in your kind of AI journey and adoption journey? So, with that said, again, have questions along the way, drop them in. Happy to address them as we go. So let's jump into the state today of tech support. So we kind of look at it, my perspective is from two different sides. First, you have your people, and then you have your processes, and kind of where everything sits today and what's evolving and what are some of the challenges. So two of the big things that you see out there are from the people side are your agents, are your technicians, right? In this support environment, these frontline teams are facing enormous pressures on a daily basis, right? Um, there was a recent study by a company out there, by a company that actually showed that 67% of organizations actually are talking about kind of that rising turnover rate, right? Because of a lot of agent burnout, because of a lot of complexity that's going on in situations because of the volume of needs and requests that are coming in. When 96% of these same agents are reporting kind of weekly stresses, right? It's not so much as before. A lot of simple break fix issues have become much more complicated because of the technology that's being deployed, where people are being supported, where people are working from, right? And then you have the other end of the spectrum that's also driving some of this are the expectations by your customers, by your end users, right? Their perspective is that 82% of customers are expecting that resolution on that first interaction, right? So the first time they get to the point where they're interacting with an agent, they don't expect to get the runaround. They don't expect to have to say, oh, we'll have to connect later. I'll have to get back to you. They expect it to be solved, right? Because a lot of these individuals have already started to troubleshoot things themselves, right? Maybe they've done the basics, right? The old, have you unplugged it? Have you plugged it back in, right? They're not going to support for that. They're doing a lot of these basics themselves. These what previously may have been L1 troubleshooting and resolution steps. And so when they get to someone that they expect is the expert, they really expect that level of problems to get solved. And then you boil in with that too, kind of this plateaued CSAT, which is still strong at a 73%, but not where businesses like to be as well. So that's the one side, the people part of the equation. And something that's impacting a lot of the people side of the equation are the processes, right? The things that are going through from tech support. So as I mentioned previously in the burnout, a lot of it is just the complexity of the problems, complexity of the workflows, complexities of the ecosystems and environments that your organizations are running, that your teams need to support, right? First, that really, I think kind of says a whole lot, right? Around 78% of IT leaders are just saying that issues are more complex than what they were 3 years ago. And this isn't surprising, right? You have a variety of devices that need to be supported, right? Whether it's a Mac or Windows device, whether it's a variety of mobile devices now have become much more prevalent, working on the go, checking emails and messages and things like that on the go, needing immediate access from it. So that's adding to complexity. You have different environments that people are getting supported from, right? With home offices, remote offices that maybe don't have a technical expert, or IT expert on site. People connecting to different VPN infrastructures, having different ZTNA technology that's blocking connections, variety of SaaS plus desktop applications that you're trying to navigate through, maybe complex authentication measures and so forth that really just layer upon layer, creating a lot more complexity when problems come to the forefront, right? Something's not working. I have this vague problem. There are many different things that could be the root cause of it to take these steps to troubleshoot. But then at the same time, you have 47% of tickets that are getting escalated unnecessarily due to a problem at that first level diagnostics, right? So a lot of these problems that are coming through, while more complex, should be solved from the perspective of a number of IT professionals at that first level, right? If they were properly trained, had the proper knowledge, right? You have that burnout, the turnover individuals. Maybe you have more junior people that are coming up. Um, these are things that shouldn't be getting escalated, right? Because then you're creating more of a backlog in your L2s, L3s, obviously much more costly support, higher levels that you get up. And so we're trying to move more things to one, and I think organizations understand there should be things more solvable at those levels. What can be done to do that? Well, I think AI has a really good way to help resolve some of that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And that dovetails into the next one, 40% of agent time just searching for information, right? Because these problems are coming through, and you can kind of see how these things are layering on top of each other. Coming through, maybe not as knowledgeable. I need to look around for the answer. So instead of solving a problem, for every 10 minutes, 4 minutes of those are being spent just searching around for the correct answer, right? And that could be problems with documentation or knowledge articles, just could be gaps in where to find it, could be searchability or access to this information or not really understanding some of the problems, right? Um, and then you layer on the other end of it, right, with from a process standpoint, the growing, as I mentioned, need for kind of self-service measures, better, powerful automation flows, knowledge bases, and so forth that a lot more customers are expecting today to do what they feel like are more of the foundational things that they don't want to wait for maybe a technician or agent to support them on. Okay, so that's kind of the state of the state of my perspective, right? And so we painted out this picture of people issues, process issues, obviously in a Venn diagram, they're really influencing one another along the way. Um, but now let's pivot over. We'll keep this in the back of our head and then think about AI for a second. So I think the first thing to think about is really where we are in, from our perspective, the AI kind of adoption curve for a lot of organizations, right? So you have this idea from pilot to production, right? First and foremost, a majority of organizations today view AI as more of strategic initiatives, and I don't have this kind of listed here, but I think something I read recently was almost three-quarters are viewing AI as something that's more strategic rather than experimental, right? I think if you have this conversation about a year ago, more organizations would be saying, no, we're still kind of testing the waters, experimenting. No, it's gotten to the point where it's much more a strategic imperative and having real life impact across organizations, across business units. So, the investment in it isn't just a hype, right? 9 out of 10 organizations are actually actively um, leveraging, expanding their use of generative AI within their environments, right? So you're growing in kind of this widespread exploration and adoption of it, right? Spending is projected to increase next year, so to continue to go up on specific AI, right? Not just shoulder pieces, but specific AI initiatives when we move into 2026, as it has over the previous years. Um, the next piece is implementation, right? So where are we looking at from this adoption curve? Where are things actually being put in production and used? So it's really kind of varied across the board, across it, but what we're seeing is around 42% of organizations that are using it for kind of basic automation capabilities, simple tasks like diagnostics, um, maybe ticket categorization, routing pieces, and so forth. As I mentioned, 38% with the diagnostics as well. And then 22% actually have a much more mature, I guess you could say, driven support system, right? So predictive insights, maybe autonomous resolution for certain issues. So they're really leaning full into a lot of these agents and agentic AI technology that's getting in there and resolving things themselves, or at least escalating things with minimal to no human intervention or support. And what's the output that these companies are seeing, right? So we got this widespread adoption, 9 out of 10, using it in a few areas. And what's the impact? So really, it's coming down to a lot of productivity side of it, as would be expected. I think there's knowledge components to this that really surfacing insights that are going to start to bubble up more. But for right now, really what people are looking for is just get more out of the resources they have today, and using AI to get more out of those tools, remove a lot of the menial things, lower that 40% of time that's spent searching for answers rather than solving problems. And so that's really where a lot of the ROI is being driven in those productivity measures, right? So understanding, have a foundation of how productive your teams are being, their throughput, their output, depending on what your key KPIs are. Really, that's where you should look at different AI deployments to have those impacts, right? So thinking about this adoption curve, and I know obviously organizations that I've spoken to, both big and small, are all of the spectrum on where they are in their kind of curve, versus one use case to multiple use cases, simple tasks versus complex tasks. What I'd like to do is, get you involved in this discussion, and just understand, how have you started to adopt this in your operations today? So we're going to pop up this poll uh, really quick. So hopefully we're popping that up there. Awesome. And so, yeah, simple, select one of these, right? How have you adopted it today? Extensively, to some extent. Maybe you haven't yet, and you're still just getting planning on it. Um, or maybe you're not considering it. If you're not, maybe I'll tell you a few things that'll pique your interest and change your mind a little by the end of this. But by all means, it's definitely understandable. I think with some people that are still on the fence, or maybe don't have the resources or dollars to invest in it. So we'll give another 5 seconds here for that to come through. All right, I think we can push that back out and let's see what we got here. So we've got majority in not yet, but planning to, about 60%, 27% with yes to some extent, and then we got some bookends on the other side. So hopefully for those that are planning to, I'm going to give you some good information here, and those that are kind of already starting their journey, again, maybe give you some more insights and ideas on what to do. So I think the next important thing to think about is, as we dive into it, the use cases, right? From a support perspective, right? So where can AI have an impact today? Where is it already having an impact today? So one, I think, is the very known thing that's been around for a long time, has significantly improved, right? From your probably 8 years ago, natural language chatbots have gotten much more advanced to pull in and engage with your end users to help them self-serve, right? 24/7, basic thing, user requests, password resets, checking order statuses, things like that, depending on the use case, is where those are being applied today towards that customer-facing side of it. So that's the one end of it. Next piece of it is your kind of agent assistance and triage components, right? So automatically categorizing, routing tickets, suggesting knowledge articles, maybe providing different contexts to agents in real time for information to really support those workflows and streamline a lot of kind of the basic foundational pieces of just day-to-day operations, day-to-day workflows of any agent. Then we start to move to things that are a little more mature, a little more sophisticated down the funnel on the bottom half of this quadrant, right? You have that automated remediation, right? You have AI operations. So scripts, different AI ops that maybe have tools to fix routine issues, right? Maybe someone has VPN reconnects, system restarts, DNS flushes, things like that, that can be solved without human intervention, right? And these are becoming a lot easier than a lot of maybe your scripted workflows that existed of the past. Now you have the ability to use AI to identify the problems, and some are more scripted remediation, some are more fluid, nimble, agile remediation process that AI can do that's not as linear or confounding as kind of an if this, do that type flow. You get a little more fluidity in it. And then the last one that I think really is where, from my perspective, what I think AI has the ability to unlock the most is really unlocking the insights and data within organizations as well. So having the ability to use AI to analyze different trends in your systems or your tickets, to predict future outcomes, right? To predict staffing needs, to predict problems, to predict where you should be training your organization, training them up to improve them or to automate more things in the future, right? So really using the large breadth of information that's at the hands of all IT organizations, from information coming off endpoints to real live sessions, which we'll touch on a little bit, being able to collate that, analyze it to identify, where can we make improvements for our organization. So in my perspective, a lot of bang for your buck in that bottom right side, but obviously impacts across the board, and things will vary based on what your organization needs. Okay, so how about from the remote support side, right? So we're pretty broad. Now I'm going to narrow us in a little bit, because with Rescue, right, remote support tool, hands-on technical remote support, not going anywhere anytime soon. I think there's a lot of organizations, people that would love it to be completely autonomous, but everyone I speak to that becomes a realist and says, well, you're never really going to get that. There are edge cases, right? But how can you kind of benefit and succeed and have takeaways from AI leveraged in remote support sessions? So one is a high impact use case that we're already seeing results in today is intelligent issue diagnostics, right? So being able to go in and look at in real time what's going on a device, where are their hotspots, where are the potential anomalies, root causes of issues, right? And the time required to usually manually identify these can be reduced by 37% through automated analysis. A company called Aberdeen Group did an analysis on these using different workflows and things, and this is the number they came out with, and obviously mileage may vary, but even if it's 25% of the time, right? Still significant when you think of the breadth or number of tickets and support sessions that come through an organization, the time savings that can be experienced. The other end of this is just in knowledge assistance, right? So much is occurring during support sessions that providing agents with contextual information is going to improve first contact resolution considerably, right? You saw that set that I had earlier with 40% of the time just looking for answers, right? Serving up things contextually at the right time with not needing agents to go through not only makes them smarter if they're less skilled, it'll also improve the speed of resolution. Happier end users, get them back on their way, more productive, right? So these are the two key areas that remote support today is already being transformed through AI and helping your agents out, particularly kind of your L1 agents. So let's dive into these a little bit, right? So, I like to look at AI in my perspective, right? The lowest risk and potentially some of the highest reward is really when you take AI and leverage it as an amplifier for your technicians, for your agents, and really help to enhance their capabilities and just provide them better experiences overall, right? Make them happier. So one, which I mentioned on the previous slide, knowledge amplification. 31% more issues being resolved by tier one reps when AI is leveraged in that way. Next side, experience enhancement, right? So 76% of agents that are reporting greater job satisfaction with AI assistance, helping them with contextual, helping them dig through things. And then lastly, right, accelerating onboard. With this constant turnover, right, you can't spend months leveling up or training your potential L1 reps. So how can you ease them into it more quickly and know that they have something to fall back on to quickly level up their knowledge and context, and how they should be walking through a process, steps they should be taking, AI assisted training, and so forth. Um, The and interesting call out. So someone put a note in there, and I'm not one to shy away from a comment saying that AI has high error rates potentially, and it's excused potentially for not having technical knowledge. And I think that's a fair assumption to have. I think it really is what the underlying data set or information that the AI is pulling from. I'd agree if you're thinking about larger potential world knowledge. The AI could potentially provide incorrect information. But if you're constantly curating and you have kind of human intervention in the middle of it, if you're making sure to continue to improve the hygiene of the underlying information that it can continue to learn from, you can get to a very strong model that's actually laying out some actionable, useful, correct information. And I agree. I mean, can it ever replace technical knowledge of a well-seasoned veteran technician? No, not at all. But in a world where you're constantly needing to potentially have a shortage of talent that is either aging out or turning over, you have to find a way to ramp some junior techs pretty quickly. And giving them access to knowledge and training on the job is sometimes faster and more productive from a cost and resource management standpoint than letting them sit kind of an onboarding training only for a significant period of time. So I think it's a very valid comment that you provided. But it's I think it's a double-edged sword. You can't 100% rely on it. But greater and greater success are being seen when you're continuing to improve and enhance the underlying information. So what about from the other side, right? So agent amplifier, how about your end users, right? Don't want to think about them. Don't want to forget about them in this kind of conversation that you're having. So how is AI producing more satisfying support interactions? Well, one, it's just speed to resolution. So the time, and we're seeing this with the AI that a lot of our customers have started to leverage within Rescue, just the average resolution time, your mean resolution time, however you want to measure it, is being reduced significantly when you have AI-assisted support in there, right? 43% in the study that was done. Consistency across the board, right? So you don't have a diversity of quality or across your different agents, right? Everyone's kind of singing from the same hymnal, as they say, providing similar answers and responses that have been vetted, that have been validated by the organization. So improving that consistency. And then just general boost to satisfaction, right? I mentioned kind of plateauing CSAT levels. If you kind of bolster these together with the consistency, quality results, speed to resolution, getting someone to be productive again, is kind of rising all tides as well. Okay, so before we kind of dive into Rescue's AI specifically, that I want to briefly go over, and then I think it's better to see the few minute demo that we had. I think it's important the conversation to have around measuring success, right? What are things that you should be looking at? And this is, as I said earlier on, one of the bigger questions that we've gotten around potentially ROI. Where should we be looking for the impact of this? And of course, it's going to vary by the need of your organization, how you are working, what you're supporting, where there are gaps potentially, or where you want to make improvements. That being said, I think if you kind of look at this foundation, there's kind of key ways to look at it. One is the cost metrics, and this is from a senior leadership standpoint. Anytime you're going to be investing in something, you're putting money in. What are you getting out? Something that impacts directly the bottom line is always easier to sell across and to prove. So how do you kind of look at that? If you want to have some cost metrics, directly KPIs around handle times, time to resolution, service level compliance are your fastest ways to look at it, right? From end to end support experience, you can show a reduction in that, obviously cost of different reps and so forth, and you can really back into a potential savings that way pretty quickly. Efficiency measures, right? That almost go hand in hand with some of that, but utilization, cost per ticket, and just overall support cost reductions that you have there. And then lastly, for justifying it, at the top of the chart here is those customer metrics that sometimes are going to be trailing a little bit to when you put it out there. You're going to have to watch those a little bit more over time. But your NPS or CSATs, first call resolution rates, that tend to have a better impact on those CSATs, right? If you want more of a leading indicator, if you can lift that FCR, you're going to be doing yourself really do yourself well from a satisfaction NPS standpoint. And repeat ticket rate, right? Are you solving these things well enough initially? How frequently you're getting the same questions kind of coming back? Are you putting out kind of self-service materials to kind of reduce that through AI as well? Okay. So through a lot of it out there, and I think you'll probably see where we're kind of going. Again, this is our perspective on where we've been in the support experience and where we know a remote support tool like Rescue can have an impact and how AI can be leveraged. And so earlier this year, we released our suite of AI functionality that we continue to enhance and bring different things in. And it kind of has, 5 kind of key areas, 3 of functionality and 4 of enhancing them. The first of which, and these are all kind of in-session capabilities, first of which we're calling kind of device analysis. So the ability to go in with one click of a button, do a thorough analysis of a device in the quick health. So if you have an agent that's going in and maybe troubleshooting a one-off problem quickly, they can solve it easily. Then maybe at the end, run this device analysis. Hey, is there something else going on with this device that I can fix while I'm in here and troubleshooting as well, so this individual doesn't have some problems in the future, right? Or if there's more of a general problem that comes in, you could run this beforehand, maybe to start pointing you in the right direction. Screen analysis, or can even almost be called error analysis. One of the big things that we know we've seen is sometimes different errors get thrown on devices. There's something going on a screen that then takes a lot of time for a technician to go out and identify and troubleshoot. Well, now you'll have the ability to kind of click into those and dive into specifically what does that error mean? What are some potential steps to resolve that error? And so forth. A session summary, which is where we've seen probably the biggest utilization of our AI functionality, some of the biggest benefits, is just in the ability to, as a session is done, running with a click of a button, a quick summary on that session to really capture everything that went on. And if there's step-by-step flows in there to capture those, which really creates a good level of consistency in documentation, knowledge hygiene that you can report on later, or just bolster your organizational knowledge. We've had a recently improved integration. We had a previous integration with ServiceNow. We've actually enhanced it with our with this, and I'll actually click into this one really quick, which is really actually leveraging knowledge-based information from ServiceNow and ticket context that's connected to a session. So if you're a ServiceNow customer and you start a session from our ServiceNow integration, you can actually pull in all that ticket context and information that our AI then can run on to help you identify different troubleshooting steps that need to be done from resolution directly from your knowledge library to speed up, reduce kind of the clicking back and forth. And then when a session is all done and you summarize that session, that pushes back in to enhance and improve your knowledge base and information within your instance. And that kind of knowledge base deep dive, we're also expanding that to allow companies to plug our AI on top of their knowledge bases, so that way there's more contextual and relevant information being served back when there's resolutions suggested for your organization. Okay, so those are the areas that we're solving in with Rescue today. With that, I know I said a lot of them. I do want to take a couple minutes here. I think it's only a few minute demo video that my colleague Sam had recorded for us, rather than us trying to do this live and tempt the gods. So I'll ask Nika to turn that up for everyone right now, and I'll see you guys in a minute.
In this demo, we're going to walk you through Rescue's AI package, which includes 3 key features: device and screen analysis, and session summary. First, we'll take a look at the device analysis, which both highlights potential system issues and provides resolution guidance. Sam, take it away.
All right, so to start, when you're actively connected in Rescue, you can see everything from hard drive capacity to CPU usage to a hardware profile to running processes, services, applications. We can see things like drivers, startup items, and even the event viewer. All of that's available during a session today. However, it's up to the agent to determine what the case or what the cause of the issue, the root cause of the issue may be. The AI summary can be very, very helpful in that situation. With the AI add-on, we add the Analyze button here to System Info. When an agent clicks that, it takes into account all the data that's available, summarizes it, analyzes it, and provides an output as you can see here. In this case, the summary says the device needs attention due to high RAM usage. A hard drive is nearly full, and there's ongoing application-related warnings and errors in the event log. It provides recommended action, and more importantly, on the right-hand side, we can see the specific issues outlined. RAM usage is high at 48%, hard drive almost full. Last reboot was 8 days ago. And there's repeated warnings from a .NET runtime application error, as well as Windows error reporting for application errors, and occasional performance-related warnings from Microsoft Windows perflib. As we can see, very helpful, right? Very easy to help the agent identify exactly what the issue may be. That is system info analysis. The next AI-related feature is screen analysis. So this allows the support agent to select an error message on the screen, and AI will identify what it means, explain what it means, and provide potential solutions. So in this case, there's an error message on the screen about a file path error, right? It cannot find or locate a specific file path. As the support agent, they can select the AI analysis and then simply draw a screen capture around the error message in question. That selects the piece of the screen that's going to be analyzed. AI will take that, analyze it, and as we see on the right-hand side, we get an explanation identifying what the error means. But more importantly, below that, we get solutions, potential solutions, right? Verify the file path, and it gives me steps on how to do that. Restore missing file, and steps on how to do that. Even check for typographical errors. Again, this is a very basic example, but it illustrates the basics of what this AI feature can accomplish. Let's take another example. Let's say the end user, or the support agent rather, is in a remote support session. They're in the event viewer trying to identify a specific error message, and they come across an error message that they just don't understand. This being a fairly good example, which you see on screen here. Now, in most situations, what would the agent do here? They would open up a new tab in their browser. Maybe they'd go to Google, maybe they'd go to an AI provider and try to identify an explanation as well as a solution to this specific error message. Well, we've built that into Rescue with the AI add-on. Same concept. The support agent can simply enable AI analysis, select the error message here on the screen. That will then be analyzed by AI and explained, as well as provide solutions to the problem. There we go. So in this case, again, a little bit more complicated scenario here, right? Specifically with DCOM permissions on the system. Around local activation, actually, that's the specific issue here. So again, the AI will explain the issue and then provide solutions. The solution to this problem is to grant local activation permissions using component services. And there's an explanation of exactly how to accomplish that, specific to the app in question. So that's the beauty of this, is it takes into account whatever is selected on screen. In this case, it was an application-specific piece, and allows us to identify that here. Gives us steps on how to solve that. Right, in this case, there's really only one solution to the problem. So there's only one solution provided by the AI assistant here. The last piece to show here is what's called the session summary. So to generate the session summary, I simply close remote control, and we'll see here on the right-hand side a new Generate Summary button. This takes into account everything that occurs during the rescue session. So it's a very easy way to automate note-taking for these sessions. The consideration here and the value that's added here is that not only does it reduce time after these remote sessions occur, but it also improves accuracy and detail in any notes that are taken for this specific support interaction. So all this data is very easily captured very quickly without the agent having to provide their own notes after the session occurs. It's a very simple way to have a very easy to read and very clearly written synopsis of what occurred during this active remote control session. This can now be copied to any ticketing system with a simple copy button. We are also planning to improve our integrations with our existing CRM platforms like ServiceNow, Salesforce, Zendesk, etc., to include this AI-generated summary in the very, very near future.
All right, let me pull up my screen again real quick here. There we go. Awesome. All right. So hopefully that was a useful demo for speaking to a lot of what I was kind of going through and talking to and things like that during positioning what Rescue does. Again, I think seeing is easier than kind of explaining visual learner, and I hope that can help unlock some of what you think is powerful and useful in remote support today. And we're really just scratching the surface of other things that we're planning to release in the coming weeks ahead as well. I did have someone, and I apologize because I missed it when I was going through it in the question box, around the concern that AI is just going to replace people. People are going to lose their job, and I think, Maureen, that's a very valid assumption or question or hypothesis. I think people will lose their current jobs potentially, but I think a lot of this AI is unlocking a lot of other abilities for individuals, right? There's much more need into one of the comments earlier in kind of AI oversight roles and capabilities in that way to level those things up to help kind of augment stuff. I don't see a world in which, and many individuals I speak with from kind of hands-on support requirements and some of this human intervention needed is going anywhere anytime soon. I know there's a lot of organizations out there that are preaching and saying that it will be gone, but I find that very much hard to believe. I think it's really, at this point, an augmentation tool, and I think those that then want to continue to level up and unlock other opportunities with what AI is being able to do can do so. Will roles and responsibilities continue to change and evolve from maybe your L1s? Sure, I think they will. They'll probably get, the demand on them and requirements will probably get a little more sophisticated as well. So, I think there's always this belief, right, that everyone's gonna kind of lose their job and move through, and I haven't seen that come to fruition yet. I think it just evolves and responsibilities change and roles continue to evolve as well. So, I think that actually is a great transition to kind of challenges and considerations when you're thinking about AI, right? Because not everything is all rainbows and unicorns, as everyone says, right? The first thing to consider is that, that there are going to be hurdles, right, to potentially security privacy, right? Any new technology is going to introduce new risk, right? You'll need to do full audits. You want to make sure data is being siloed appropriately. Ensuring control over how things are being used is key, right? So any organization you're working with, if they don't have fully defined kind of their AI policies and terms, how are their LLMs getting trained? What's going on with your data? Um, what are the privacy policies for the company? If that's not completely documented, run for the hills. Don't deploy on that, and look for something else, because any vetted type of organization or security first organization is going to not is going to have that, right? It's not going to be a blind spot for them. The next one is data and integration, right? And I think this again speaks to the comment earlier, right? That no technology is going to be plug and play. AI needs high quality input data, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And so integrating, plugging in right information, making sure that the data that it learns from has been vetted, is continuing to improve and update, will continue to make that curated and tailored AI experience, whatever it's moving into, valid and work well, right? You want to make sure things aren't just siloed away. You want to make sure that's not incomplete data. So a lot kind of going on in there to have that piece of it, right? And then at the same time, integrating AI with legacy systems can be complicated. So that is something to be mindful of. If you have a lot of legacy home-built, homegrown systems, which I know still continue to exist out there, it might be a little more complicated to integrate that in and build that out. The human AI balance, and this goes, I think, to that exact point. There has to be this so much mutual trust in a sense of training to trust and use the AI effectively, not 100% or blindly rely on it, but know when to use it and how to use it and when to question it at the same time, and understanding what is the role that the human has in intervention and working with the AI, and vice versa. And so, disclosing that use of AI, being transparent about it is huge. And then change management, right? And this is, I think, really encompasses everything above, because AI will change workflows, involving staff early, getting early adopters and users on board, can, I think, eliminate some of that early fear, avoid some of those kind of concerns, maybe that idea that it's coming for my jobs and taking things away. And so really managing that change early and often is really important. So we got one more poll before I'm gonna have a quick wrap up, and then if there's any other questions, happy to answer them. Would love to know, right? This isn't something we talked much about. We talked about the experience and output of it, but with that security and privacy being one of the top challenges and things you should be thinking about, I'd love to understand, what is your level of security and privacy concern with AI tools today. It's always good for myself, and I know our product organizations, as we move out there, of where you are, and obviously it's a different scale, and I think a lot of it is education based, but it's always good to understand how upfront, how proactive communicating our policies and security measures would be. So we'll give you a quick 5 seconds here. All right. Two. Let's see, response is still coming in quickly. Awesome. All right, I think we've about slowed down. We could probably push this back out. And looking at it, you know what? Not terribly surprising, with almost a 50-50 split between kind of your medium and high. And I think that's right. I think there needs to be a level of cautious optimism or positive skepticism or something like that, and going into it and ensure that any provider you're working with, just like anything else, and then even more so, how you would question what is being done with your company or user data. Similar in the AI side, how is it being used? Is it siloed? What's the engine being trained off of? Can I retain my own data? Can I opt out of things? All kind of key questions out there that you should really be asking of any provider that you're going to be working with. All right. So love to wrap up, shifting from kind of the why and concerns to kind of the how, right? So here is my best approach in a quick, simple way for those that are maybe just entering this journey, haven't started yet, for kind of a practical roadmap for implementing it. Again, not going to go into specifics because everyone's needs are going to vary, but I think that is the first step. Defining a clear use case, right? Rather than looking at the technology. So what do I mean by that? If you go out and implement specifically on a pain point, you're going to have a much greater impact than those that are just general interest in AI capabilities, right? If it's just like, oh, we're going to go in for AI's sake. We have this initiative. You're like, well, this tool has it. Let's start using it. And you don't see success with it. Well, that's maybe because you haven't defined really where a key pain is that you can solve, right? So identifying your 2, 3, 4, maybe big pains that you have in your organization and prioritizing those and say, okay, can AI help address this? Let's chase that one down, right? So having that target that you can kind of aim at. Next, as I mentioned earlier, prioritizing agent adoption, right? Get those agents, technicians involved from the very, very beginning, right? This is, in my mind, one of, if not one of the most paramount parts of any implementation success for any technology, let alone just AI. Your agents are more likely to be bought in, more likely to succeed when they're involved in selection, configuration process, beta testing, and give you the good, bad, and ugly of how the tool is working if they're going to be the ones that are using it every single day rather than just standing something up in a back room, deploying it, and hoping that people adopt it, right? And then lastly, start small, measure quickly. Same with anything. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Start in small pockets. Maybe there's a certain pain with handle time for a certain group in a certain region that you want to pilot it out to, where maybe there's low risk or more individuals that are slightly more knowledgeable or more capable of using it. And start in these areas, measure the impacts that it has, and then continue to increase the use case or increase the scope of who's using it or adoption of it. So then you're able to understand, right? But don't go into something that's too terribly small where you can't measure an output because you're kind of left holding back there. If it's just a use case or an approach where you're gonna maybe leverage it, a few dozen times throughout a month, probably not the best way to get results quickly. So you need to go in something that's a little more higher volume but lower risk for your organization. So that's kind of how I see it. It's a very logical kind of process to move through, but I think a lot of organizations, particularly on the first part, just look at technology they're using or tools they have and say, well, this has AI in it, let's start using it, and then it fails because it maybe wasn't a clear pain that they had, and so they were just kind of moving a deck chair around, solving something that didn't need solving. So encourage you to take a look and say, what is the biggest pain or issue or potential area that can have the biggest impact in our organization, and then seek to solve that with some type of AI augmentation or technology. So going to open up for questions at this point. Like always, showed you a little bit of demo there of Rescue. There's so much obviously under the hood aside from just the AI. If you'd like to speak with one of our experts, one of our solution consultants like Sam to kind of give you a personalized demo walkthrough, let us know. We'll have one of them reach out to set up time. If not, completely understand. We have many avenues to trial our functionality, review demos, or so forth. So let us know here. And while we're doing that, we'll let some of the questions kind of come through so we can answer. All right, we'll leave that open for another 20 seconds. There we go. All right, awesome. So, Bonnie, do we have any questions that came through during the session that I didn't catch up to? Trying to look here. Not sure if she's muted or here I can look through myself and see, look on this one. Oh, here's a good one. So what is, I'm trying to understand this. What are the use cases that deliver the, okay, I got it. Essentially what the question is which use cases deliver the most value and support today, and kind of what data or information you need underneath it. So as I mentioned, I think one of the big ones is really in that augmentation, kind of getting the quick access to knowledge. I think there's so much that can go on during a support session where we've seen companies have success is the ability to quickly understand a problem and easily access what are the steps to resolve it. And so that's what I've seen. I think the underlying data integrations you need are the ability to pull if there is tailored information you need or custom tailored knowledge that you already have available to be able to have that in to kind of feed into some of those answers that might be necessary. Oh, here we go. Here's another one. How do you balance AI automation with maintaining kind of a human element? So I think this goes back to the people losing their jobs or stuff in there. I think it's, and this is why I said I think starting AI more on the agent facing side to see success and augment agents is probably your best bet. I think the balance really is I'll give multiple avenues or channels for your end users. If you want to automate a lot, let people self-serve, give them that option. But like anything, make sure there is, an out for them to engage with a human at any point, right? Being transparent around, the tools or technology that's being used, that things are being automated by AI. But if anything goes awry in it, they have that breaking case of emergency type situation. So um, I think that to me is probably your best bet. So I'm kind of scrolling through here. I don't see any other ones. So I think with that, if no one has any questions, appreciate you taking around 45, 50 minutes out of your day to spend with me. Hopefully you took away one or two nuggets from this. And until next time, have a great afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you're located.